We'll get started with the content. As I've said, thank you very much, everyone, for joining this webinar. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about how Valiantys can help you with your journey from ServiceNow to Jira Service Management. Ultimately, we have performed well over 40 transformations from ServiceNow to Jira Service Management. We are experts in this area, and we're looking at how we can support you in simplifying your transformation journey. We know that any transformation journey from any tool to any tool, from any platform to any platform, is complex and it's fraught with risk. So what we're going to talk you through today is ultimately a little bit about Valiantys, our approach to enterprise service management. We know that we have evolved well beyond ITSM platforms to looking at enterprise service management across whole organizations and how we can support from a holistic tooling perspective with multiple departments. We'll then cover a little bit about why Jira Service Management is the right option. And it's not just us or Atlassian seeing it. The industry experts are looking at it, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the feedback from Forrester that has come in over the last couple of years. We'll then look at what our approach to transformation actually is. It's a risk-based approach. We'll go into some detail on that. We'll look at how we can support you in building your business case and end user adoption. And we'll finish with a Q&A. There's also going to be a little bit in there about our delivery methodologies, the offerings we've got, and how Valiantys actually can take you on that journey, as we've said, from ServiceNow to Jira Service Management. So ultimately, a little bit about me. I am the Global Head of Enterprise Service Management at Valiantys. My name is Adam Jackson. My background is service management through and through. I've used multiple different platforms to help customers transform and achieve their end goals during a service management career spanning scarily almost 15 years now. I say scarily because I realize that I am no longer the young kid on the block, but ultimately what I've looked at is major transformations for organizations in multiple different areas. Some of the largest organizations in the world. I was involved in managed services projects and programs in my previous organization. But a little bit about Valiantys as a global partner. We've had 20 plus years in business servicing Atlassian. We are Atlassian through and through. We are evolving or have evolved over the past couple of years to look at true enterprise grade transformation. So many partners and many organizations out there will talk about Atlassian cloud migrations. We are looking at cloud transformation. We're specialists in multiple different disciplines and multiple different platform approaches. We can provide recommendations on the best tooling options to use. And we also look beyond tooling at business outcomes and objectives. We've serviced over 65 of the Fortune 500. We've serviced over 2,100 clients globally. We've delivered Jira Service Management. I think it's over 650 times now, and we're present in 4 continents: Asia, Europe, North America, and Australia. Our industry specializations are broad. We are very heavily involved in the automotive sector. We are servicing a number of major clients in that space, as well as banking, consumer and retail, education, energy, financial is another area where we've delivered some really good projects, particularly in the ServiceNow to JSM space, and we will cover a case study later on. We have specialist government departments, including the federal business, healthcare, public sector, technology and software. Ultimately, whatever industry you're in, whatever size your organization is, we are Atlassian specialists who can help you on those 4 continents and beyond. In terms of our partnership with Atlassian, then, we are fully aligned with Atlassian and we deliver maximum value to our customers because of that. I don't know who chose to put my smiling face on that slide, but I will be having a word with them afterwards. But ultimately, we are 100% dedicated, as I've said, to the Atlassian ecosystem. We're the first partner to achieve all 3 of Atlassian's specializations, and we have dedicated practices to those areas. Our ITSM specialization from Atlassian is still valid, but the practice our lead is enterprise service management. We're looking beyond IT and looking at how we can help you transform your business across any service management department. Our cloud specialization as I say, goes beyond just cloud migration in the Atlassian space and takes into account your entire SaaS estate. So what are you doing and how are you working and how can we actually use the Atlassian system of work? A phrase we'll explain a little bit more about later on. Um, to really become the core nucleus, the driving force in your organization. We go beyond looking at just a simple ticketing platform or a simple project management platform or knowledge management space, for those of you familiar with the Atlassian tools. And we look at how you're actually driving your business and achieving the outcomes that you desire using innovation around the Atlassian stack and recommending integrations with specialist platforms in other areas. We've got the world's largest collection of Atlassian certifications. So Atlassian certifications are across ITSM, cloud, and agile at scale. We are transforming our agile at scale way of working um, to look at DevX. So DevX is a really important part of our transformation. We have a new global practice lead who joined us a couple of weeks ago, and I'm really excited to be working with him. And we are, as we say, Atlassian's first truly global partner, dedicated only to Atlassian. How we can help you. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail around some of our services, but ultimately it's IT consulting. It's beyond Atlassian delivery into IT consulting. We have a transformation consultancy business made up of individuals who've come from some of the largest consultancy firms globally to actually look beyond the tooling, as I've said. We're licensing specialists, obviously, within the Atlassian ecosystem. We have a dedicated AI transformation department. We provide managed services around the Atlassian products, and that's regardless of your hosting environment. And we have a specialist training department as well. One of the links that will be put in the chat will be a link to our training website. We'll also be putting some information in on other areas and segments as well. So I'm just looking to see because I thought a question popped up there. No, that was just some added links into the chat. So thank you very much for that. Just progressing a little bit then. So about Valiantys and our services and putting some more flavor to those departments. Like we said, it's cloud transformation. It's beyond just the Atlassian cloud migration. We look at what tooling is being used across the enterprise, and we look at how we then connect that with the Atlassian ecosystem. So we have experts in the new Atlassian Forge platform, or not so new these days, who are looking at how they can support customers to develop their own applications and drive transformation, starting with the Atlassian ecosystem. Then there's my area, enterprise service management. So I think there's been a big shift in the market, and I have some. I've had a discussion with someone who's actually working with Axelos on ITIL 5. Believe it or not, ITIL 5 is coming. I don't know how soon, but ITIL 5 is going to start to focus a little bit more on enterprise service management. Now, if we think about the core principles that IT service management has driven over the years, now I am ITIL certified master, etc., etc., etc. I have never opened an ITIL service management guide to solve an incident. We know that it is a best practice way of working, but ultimately, the way we view ITIL now is that the principles actually replicate very nicely across the organization. So if we think about incident management translated into HR is ultimately around something that's broken still. It's into case management. So your end user from an HR perspective needs help with something. And what we're looking at is because of the nature of Jira Service Management being very different to ServiceNow, where ServiceNow needs a module or a license for everything, we're actually able to expand the core ways of working and the underlying architecture from Jira Service Management into departments like HR, like facilities, like legal, payroll, etc., etc., etc. So our approach and our practice is geared entirely around enterprise service management. Don't get me wrong, we have an accelerator dedicated to IT service management, but we do go far beyond that in terms of our capabilities. Innovation and DevX I've mentioned there before. We know that one of the most common, or probably the most common story within our customer base at the moment isn't around Jira Service Management, it's around Jira and Confluence. So I've had conversations with people at different events who aren't aware and aren't as confident around Jira Service Management like they are with Jira and Confluence. So our focus is actually integrating the likes of Jira and Confluence with Jira Service Management to provide a frictionless, collaborative platform to connect your developer experience to your operational departments. I've touched on managed services there before as well. So that is a key area of business for us. It is something that Atlassian are focusing on over the next couple of years as well. And it's an exciting time. As I mentioned there before, my background is in managed services, so I always like to see that included when I'm talking about the business that we are running. Underpinned by all of that is AI strategy, implementation, and adoption. So we also know that when people talk about AI, it's almost seen as a bolt-on to the service objectives that are there. The way we're approaching AI is looking at it as a central underpinning aspect of the strategy of an organization. So it's not a case of here we'll develop an agent. It's actually what are the business metrics that are going to lead you to invest in AI? Because it is an investment and it's a changing way of working. It's a huge benefit and a major area of focus for us. Our head of AI, global head of AI, is absolutely brilliant at being able to articulate tangible benefits. We know that AI has come a long way, and we're starting to see more tangible aspects coming from it. But our global head of AI is absolutely brilliant at talking that from a business outcome perspective, and that is across the enterprise, not just IT. What we then look at is platform development. So how can we take what Atlassian have built in their absolute expertise in these different areas and develop further integrations with things like Sentinel, the advanced monitoring system from Microsoft? How can we work with our partners like Landsweeper who do asset intelligence to really build a kind of living, breathing ecosystem for your organization that centers back on the Atlassian stack? We're empowering teams to move faster. We're making them smarter and implementing cloud solutions. We're streamlining activities across the business and we're bringing it all together with a long-term transformation roadmap. Our approach to enterprise service management is relatively simple. We look at how service management can be run like a business. So we're helping to transform reactive cost centers into proactive, efficient, and data-driven service partners and profit centers. And we'll power that from Jira Service Management. So in terms of our kind of primary organization targets, so the targets that we have for organizations that we work with, is when we look at leaders within our organizations who've outgrown basic tools or are looking to migrate from competitors like ServiceNow, Freshworks, and Halo ESM. We're then looking at specific departments. We want to look for a more agile, cost-effective alternative to ServiceNow. So like I said there before, we know the modular focus from a license by license perspective is one that actually inflates the cost to ServiceNow quite substantially. Some of the key phrases we see when we're talking to customers that might resonate with you are bouncing tickets around support tiers. SLAs are green, but customer users are unhappy because of interfaces and ways of working. Change management is too complex. We don't know where all the hardware is or what hardware is connected to the network. And adding tools is actually leading to less visibility. So if we think about that ESM friction, and I'll come onto these offerings a little bit later on, we have an ESM diagnostics package. So that's looking at business metrics. It's stepping away from the tooling for a little while and then rebuilding the tooling and the approach to suit where your business is today. As per the ITIL principle of start where you are and progress iteratively with feedback, we're looking at baseline and where you're up to today, and then building that roadmap gradually rather than a huge big bang approach. When we look at modernizing the service desk, we have ESM accelerators. So these are modular capabilities on a department per department basis. It can get an organization up and running in as little as 4 weeks. And then we'll look at building that scalable ESM engine. So this is our full-blown ESM implementation. And if you think of that as a tiered, phased approach, we diagnose, we accelerate, and then we baseline your implementation and grow the usage of Jira Service Management across the board. In terms of how our tiers work, essentially, We'll build that business case with you. So we're not saying to you, go and build your business case. One of our offerings is to support you in doing that. We're health checking and we're financially modeling your organization to help you build that case to ServiceNow. We know the investment in ServiceNow has been huge over the years. We are not turning around and saying that ServiceNow is a bad platform, but we know that there is a reason why customers are starting to move away from that. And JSM scales very nicely in the organization and hits the points that ServiceNow can do, and it helps to grow and be and transform across the organization. We're then implementing standard workflows. So we're starting simply. We're then implementing one business unit and we're accelerating and implementing across the enterprise. So ultimately, we're baseline, we understand, we look for quick wins, we prove the model for you, we help you to build advocates within the business, and then we expand across the rest of the enterprise. Just a little bit more detail in terms of where we're up to from a enterprise service management solution summary. So we've got the diagnostics and diagnostics there, as I say, if you've got an existing instance of Jira Service Management, we can run a digital health check that will pull back tangible benefits and help you to understand where you need to refocus, rebaseline to prepare you for your transformation journey from ServiceNow to Jira Service Management. We then have the ASM accelerators, like I've talked about there before. It's any organizational department up and running for as little as 4 weeks. We can use them as incremental modules as well. So start with IT, move to HR, start with HR, move to IT. And I'll show you a little bit more about which modules we've got available at the moment. Then the ASM implementation is that true transformative approach to Jira Service Management. You don't have to start at the very start with diagnostics. We recommend that you do. You don't need to take an accelerator. We can look at bigger implementations. This is not a prescriptive model. This is what we've seen from a best practice approach that is maximizing the value our customers are seeing when they're looking at transforming to Jira Service Management, particularly from ServiceNow. ServiceNow is heavily embedded within organizations. It has been there for quite a while. We have worked with organizations who've had ServiceNow for 10 years, millions of lines of data, but we've got them across the line. We've helped them, we've gradually built, we've looked at this methodology, and we've really seen them transform in terms of value. In terms of our accelerators, then production launch anywhere in the enterprise starting at 4 weeks. So human resources, procurement, facilities, finance, security, payroll. We have a one-of-a-kind GRC module within the Atlassian ecosystem. We then look at ESM expansion across the board. We've got marketing, DevOps and DevEx, R&D, and customer service management. Other departments are there. We base our accelerators on 5 key facets that work in any service management organization. It's a customer-facing portal, it's service request, it's incident, it's change, and it's a fully baselined and health checked CMDB. Moving on then. Why Jira Service Management? So this session isn't going to focus on a demo. Please reach out if you would like a demo of Jira Service Management. We can set that up separately and talk you through your specific use cases. But we're going to talk a little bit about why Jira Service Management is being seen as a true leader in the service management space. Like I said there, the Forrester Wave 2023, and there was an update done in 2024 as well, is essentially saying that the Jira Service Management and Atlassian way of working simplifies team collaboration across the enterprise, and we're going to cover a little bit more on that later on. It's actually working very well for enterprises now. There was this common misconception that Jira Service Management and Atlassian are not enterprise ready. Some of the largest organizations in the world use Jira Service Management. The bit that we are seeing is customers are coming in with a perception that Jira Service Management can't scale. It can, and it does. We are proving that with multiple different organizations. There are organizations with 20,000 agents, 40,000 agents on Jira Service Management using the platform for multiple different departments. And these are organizations who previously used ServiceNow, and they previously thought that they could never move away from service management to Jira Service Management. And we have proven that with that roadmap approach, with baselining where they're up to and helping them to gradually build the use cases and ways of working within Jira Service Management. Um, some of the things that we're seeing from organizations who are using ServiceNow is it is rich with silos. So what happened in 2013 was Target exposed personal information of over 40 million customers. Believe it or not, I've just had an email right before this webinar telling me that some of my personal data has been breached by one of the airlines I use. Luckily, there is not it's not kind of credit card information. It's just a little bit of data that they hold. But because of the way they're working, they've been proactively able to reach out to me. So one part of their business had that breach, and they've actually connected it very well with their customer services team. Target, however, failed to do that. So the early breach warnings were overlooked due to a complex and siloed ITSM system. The disconnected processes meant that ITSM was isolated, and the impact was a delayed response, escalating the breach. It actually cost Target hundreds of millions of dollars. Particularly in Europe now, there are many different regulatory requirements that could lead to pretty intense fines. You've got GDPR, you've got DORA, you've got NIS 2. So that data security is really important now. And if you have a siloed ITSM platform that's noticed a breach but can't actually get it to the right area of the business, that's where you end up in trouble. And this is where the Atlassian system of work comes in. Another challenge that was seen, and I was actually with one of my colleagues who was due to fly back from the UK to the US in 2024. So there was a vulnerability issue, as you probably know. The skies emptied on a global scale. I know no flights were able to take off in the US. Europe kind of got planes up and running and as the issue was being figured out. But what that was caused by was an insufficient mapping of dependent systems. It came down to CMDB ultimately. So Microsoft updated something that caused a chain reaction that CrowdStrike were not prepared for. CrowdStrike didn't understand the dependencies that they had, and it cost the airlines and CrowdStrike a lot of money in the end. What happened was fixing one issue caused a catastrophic failure for multiple different partners down the chain. And it led to severe criticism, delayed and cancelled flights. And I don't think the repercussions are fully understood just yet. They're still being investigated. The final one I'm going to talk about there is General Motors. And this was specifically to do with the DevOps and development chains. There was a delayed response in the recall of 2.6 million vehicles due to a faulty ignition switch. This prevented key decision makers from a limited visibility perspective from gaining the complete view of the issue as it escalated. There was massive harm to reputation and financial and legal repercussions. So what we've seen here is a few different examples of where siloed IT in specific departments and not an enterprise service management approach have led to some pretty serious repercussions. A little bit more detail on the Forrester Wave then. So Atlassian's a leader in enterprise service management. They're a leader in knowledge management as well. You'll see that BMC and ServiceNow are leaders as well. One of the quotes that came from the Atlassian Forrester Wave report in 2024 2023 was that the market is becoming a bipolar market between ServiceNow and Atlassian. And that is largely driven by, although Atlassian haven't had the same strength historically as ServiceNow is offering, they have a stronger strategy. Now, one of the things when we hear customers say that the current offering of ServiceNow isn't strong enough, is much stronger than Jira Service Management. Actually, it depends what areas you're looking at. So one of the things you might hear from Atlassian and different partners you've spoken to is that ServiceNow is a bloated platform. You've got lots of features in there that you're paying for that you're not necessarily using. We've done a mapping exercise with one of our key partners, and what you would actually need in ServiceNow, you can do in Jira Service Management. The Atlassian Marketplace and the way of working with the Atlassian Marketplace as well means that you're only paying for things that you need. So we're able to help scale, and we've got a repeatable methodology for that transformation and for rebuilding some of the features in ServiceNow that aren't available as native capabilities within Jira Service Management. But like I say, you can scale Jira Service Management well beyond what it does out of the box. And that's where we're here to help customers is look at strategy, look at business objectives, and build something that effectively supports your organization. What is Atlassian's system of work then? So the Atlassian system of work is the strategy that has been developed to talk about the actual benefits of pairing Atlassian's various different platforms together to drive better customer experience and organizational experience. So, from an analytics platform perspective, you have Atlassian Analytics and Enterprise Insights down into the kind of core platform approach. For ESM, you've got Jira Service Management. For software development, Bitbucket, Compass, Jira Product Discovery. Strategy and planning, Jira Align Plans, Jira Product Discovery. And then you've got the Teamwork and Collaboration Foundation. So Atlassian have released a series of different collections. And that is ultimately to make it easier for customers to understand how these platforms seamlessly integrate. So you might look at this and say, look, there are multiple platforms in Atlassian, but they do seamlessly integrate together. So if we look at that journey from an ESM perspective into for me, one of the most basic descriptions of the system of work is incident occurs, problem, there's a workaround, and then the problem ticket is developed. You understand that there is some bug development that needs to be done. There's a bug in your software. You need to transfer that into Jira in the Atlassian Cloud system, and you can configure it within the DC environment as well. You can transition that bug, that problem, directly from your incident management original piece of information through to Jira, have your development teams working in Jira, pass that information back into Jira Service Management to raise it as a change, to close down the problem and the incident because you've fixed everything that's been going on, and ultimately update your CMDB. So that seamless transfer of information means that your end user is getting the information they need about their specific issue, but the rest of your business is actually coordinated across this system of work. Confluence is then integrated into it as well to put your new release notes and things on. And ultimately, what you're doing is from that single piece of information that was raised as an initial fault, you've done a full bug development cycle. Now, that for me is one of a kind in terms of the other platforms that are out there. It is that seamless transfer of information. I worked in an organization previously where to raise a change, I had to use a certain system which I'm not going to name, and it would take me about a day and a half worth of work to raise a change. It was still Excel spreadsheet heavy. There was no connectivity into the service desk, and if I made a mistake, if I missed out a full stop, the change manager was particularly focused on grammar. So if I missed out a full stop, change was rejected. I had to start it all over again. Now, that is not a thing that exists within the Atlassian ecosystem. You have a really seamless transfer from something being broken, and that is where the efficiency can be built in your organization. So, empowering high velocity service management across your organization. Um, there is a few slides I'm going to cover here in terms of Atlassian's view on the system of work, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail on ServiceNow and the Valiantys transformation offerings. If you look at how your organization works, it's ultimately like a building. And it's like a building because most of the time your departments are on different floors. And because they're on different floors, they're not necessarily communicating with each other as effectively as they could be. So what Atlassian is doing is using the Atlassian system of work to become more like an intelligent building. So it's connecting everyone together despite the fact that they're sitting in different areas. If we think about the way the world works now, and we obviously had the well-known P word or pandemic that occurred globally and started in 2020, we saw a massive shift in terms of how organizations actually structure remote work and became the norm for a lot of organizations. So having everyone able to connect on a single platform and a single interface really is something that's really crucial. The organization I worked for previously, if I wanted to raise an HR case, I had to use one system. If I wanted to raise a payroll case, it was another system. If I wanted to raise something for IT, it was another system. And these weren't even service portals. Some of it was done via email, some via SharePoint. If you think about again what Jira Service Management can do, it's a portal of portals approach. And again, it's quite different to the manual configuration you need to do within ServiceNow to be able to achieve that. You've got a single front end, a single user experience, and a single user interface that is connecting all of these departments to your end user. So you can go into that portal from a JSM perspective and start typing in, I want to raise an HR case, and it's going to bring up the relevant search articles, the relevant knowledge articles, relevant tickets for you to be able to raise in a single place without having to go into different modules and different interfaces. So that's connecting your organization together and improving productivity. The system of work principles, it's aligning all teams to work goals. Um, it's allowing you to plan and track the work that's going on. It's unleashing collective knowledge. So what you've actually got there is faster time to value, engaged teams, and a higher ROI using the Atlassian system of work. This is a really interesting statistic that is quite well known actually. I haven't checked the latest figures, but the spend on service management and IT systems is in the tens of billions, and ultimately, leaders are going to spend probably about $2 billion over what they need to. It's already expensive. Adding that extra 2 billion on unused features of ITSM platforms in 2026 alone was the forecast that Gartner made. It is a real business killer in terms of that bloat and unused features that we talked about a little bit earlier on. And that is where Jira Service Management and the services Valiantys offer really support your organization to only pay for what you need. In terms of high velocity service management, and that's Atlassian's approach to enterprise service management. You're accelerating your dev and ops flows. You're empowering service for all, as we've talked about there from that portal approach, and you're delivering fast value to your organization. What you're able to do is actually go to your service management leadership within your organization and see how you can connect HR, payroll, finance, IT together. One of the things that we've got and we've developed using only Jira Service Management really is a joiners, movers, leavers process that works. I worked again for another organization where a specific department was set up to handle joiners, movers, leavers processes. And it was because these organizations were siloed. So we were using one ERP system for HR queries, another ERP system for actual payroll queries and for processing payroll. And then IT was on something completely different. All of the transfer of information from the start of recruitment was done on Word documents, and no part of the organization was allowed to see the Word document prepared by the previous part of the document because of data transfer. So one of the things I've done within my time at Valiantys is looking at what have been the really painful things I've experienced in service management and how replicable is that within organizations. And it's a common problem tying all of your joiners' information together. So what we've actually built is using Jira Service Management, you can create a way so your new joiner is providing the same information only once. You can then divide out that information depending on who the audience is. So your top half of your form could be specific for HR information that payroll aren't allowed to see. That information goes to HR and it's the same form. You're not having to divide it and retransfer, but you're just segmenting off the information flow and where it's going. What you're then able to do is actually retain that information and transfer it seamlessly back into your HRIS. So Jira Service Management isn't there to replace your HR information systems. There is a strong relationship and linkage between Jira Service Management and Workday to actually support these processes and flow the information in the right direction. And again, we're not talking multiple modules, we're talking single portal, single interface, single approach, single license. What you're then getting is your new joiner has only had to communicate with your business once rather than having to provide multiple different forms to different departments. The most important thing for me, and it's the key metric that I've realized throughout my career, is your joiner's experience the key thing you need, right, is that person who is joining your business to be able to say two things. One, I have everything I need on day one of my employment at this time to work effectively. And two, the service I received has made me feel welcome and a part of the business. If you can't say yes to those two things, you need to look at your joiners process. And again, that's something we can help with. If you think about, anyone who's involved in revenue drive, so we'll take a really basic example from a sales person. The overall ambition, and it doesn't happen because they've got to be introduced to accounts, but you want that salesperson to be able to close a deal on day one. They need all of the equipment. How do you track that at the moment? Now, they need all the access. How do you track that at the moment? When it comes to their first payday, are they going to be paid correctly? Because believe it or not, there are still a lot of organizations out there who, to get that answer, they have to go to so many different systems and so many different people. What we've been able to build with Jira Service Management and ServiceNow was a part of the ecosystem I was talking about there before that was siloed. What we're able to do with Jira Service Management is connect all that together and provide a single update and single overview for your recruitment manager, whoever is in charge of ensuring that that person is prepared and ready to go. That can create a dashboard based on only the information that's needed. So ultimately, that system of work is actually working for your business rather than you having to work a lot to get the most out of your systems. Start there, 55K customers trust Jira Service Management. That is increasing all of the time. We are seeing new logos and new customers trusting Jira Service Management all the time. Like I said there before, there was this misconception that Jira Service Management wasn't enterprise ready. It is a misconception. We are dealing with many large organizations who are trusting and seeing the benefit and the return on investment from Jira Service Management. Ultimately, then, I like this slide really because it's talking about all of the different capabilities that high velocity service management means within Jira Service Management. Monitoring and alerting, diagnosing and responding, configuring and managing, optimizing and running, core modern IT operations. But then you've got the service management for developers and into modern support in the different areas of the business. What's also really good to see on this graphic is dev, AI ops, AI service. They are not bolt-ons. They are key fundamental parts, table stakes of the Atlassian system of work. Atlassian intelligence drives all of this. And then you've got Rovo, which allows you to develop specific agents to handle specific queries and specific actions for specific organizational departments. So getting started with your transformation from ServiceNow to Jira Service Management, this is the Valiantys methodology and approach. Our precision framework is a model for driving transformation. Our key pillars are around strategy and transformation services. So we have advisory-led engagements that step back from the tooling. We look at how we can connect your spend to actual value. The word value for me is something that is very subjective. So what one of you finds valuable might be very different to what the next one finds valuable. But that's where we work with you to understand what your key business objectives are and help you to define what that value needs to be. We're looking at portfolio rationalization and metrics alignment. So we really want to understand what you're measuring and why you're measuring it. We won't turn around and tell you you're wrong, but we might provide advice and guidance on other best practices we've seen from organizations. We're then looking at AI augmented service operations. We're looking at IT and enterprise service management platform service management replatforming. We're looking at cloud and platform modernization, DevX and product delivery optimization. So what you're seeing here really is we're understanding your business and we're preparing you for that transformation. What then makes it work is that modular service that we talked about earlier on. We're tailoring these for your specific vertical and we're customizing these for you. We're then scalable from MVP to enterprise rollout. We're embedding IP that we've developed over time that we've seen as best practice within specific industries. We're developing full reference architecture. We are not just implementing a tool. That is something that we are very, very, very passionate about. We don't believe in tooling implementations just for the sake of tooling implementations. We want to understand how you're working and help you to baseline and grow and really see the value of the Atlassian system of work. How would begin your transformation if you were to move forward with ServiceNow to Jira Service Management transformation? It's not about transferring your data. So the data transfer of any migration is the most complex part. We have tooling available that helps with that, specifically built for ServiceNow to JSM migrations. But it's not just about the data, it's actually embracing the opportunity to redefine how your organization operates. We don't believe in just rebuilding what you've had in one platform because what you're going to get is users who expect the same thing that they've seen in a platform before, or they'll get the same results that they've seen in the platform before. And whether those two things were positive or negative, it's basically rebuilding. And we don't want to rebuild. We want to help you optimize and modernize how your organization operates. So our strategies and methods. So in terms of the use cases we'll solve, we can do a couple of different things. Migration. So we're ultimately looking at you turning off ServiceNow and you bringing in Jira Service Management. But that's not necessarily a big bang approach immediately. We've had customers who've worked on phased approaches. So they've gone department by department, they've gone function by function. We can go and look at it and say you're going to turn off ServiceNow one day and you're going to turn on Jira Service Management the next. Not necessarily recommended. We can do it, but ultimately that phased and gradual approach, because one of the most important things you're going to see in this phase is organizational change enablement. So change enablement and bringing your organization on the journey is what can kill or make any transformation. And again, we've got methodologies that we've helped customers with in the past as well. The other big play that we've seen, or the big opportunity we've seen really is coexisting. There's a case study I'm going to talk about later on from a financial services customer that we worked very closely with. And they had Jira. It was working very well for them. They wanted to explore Jira Service Management for their DevOps team. So they had an application development team. They were having to build very heavy and manual integrations between Jira and ServiceNow. So what they did was they looked at bringing in JSM for the incident part after applications had been launched. So they could do the transfer from Jira Service Management into Jira quite seamlessly. And gradually what they found was more and more people within the organization who experienced Jira Service Management loved Jira Service Management. The dual ran JSM and ServiceNow for about a year, I think, and then they turned it off. They turned ServiceNow off, and they rolled Jira Service Management out as their global enterprise service management tool strategically in departments like HR. That is a common pattern we're seeing. We know it takes time to build the confidence from a tooling switch, particularly when ServiceNow has been so heavily embedded within your organization. But again, it's something we can support you in. What we actually believe in really is not telling you that everything will be perfect and there's no risk, because we know that's not true. We have this is a customer example we had from a risk analysis perspective. And what we looked at was varying different use cases, and there's different ways we can do this. And we looked at where the Jira Service Management capabilities weren't seen to be as strong as the ServiceNow capabilities. So if you look, incident management, self-help portal, it's green across the board. From an asset discovery perspective, I'm going to address an elephant in the room. Jira Service Management isn't as strong as some of the other capabilities out there, but we partner with an organization called Lansweeper. They are deeply integrated with Atlassian, and they're actually much more cost effective than a lot of the other tooling that's out there. So what we're able to do is actually automate the discovery of CMDB, but not just provide automated discovery. Lansweeper provides deep asset intelligence and then integrate with your CMDB. So we build multiple services. We've had customers on a global basis who've wanted to move away from ServiceNow. Asset intelligence and CMDB has been seen as an issue. We've built services that have supported it and they've transferred straight away, and they've actually seen an uptake in performance based on what we're seeing in ServiceNow. So we would present these honest risks to you. We are not believers in saying everything is perfect. There are gaps in terms of any tooling that you take from an expectation perspective, from a UI perspective, from a UX perspective. We help you bridge those gaps and we'll help you build methodologies to bring your organization along on that journey. In terms of change management and adoption, again, you're not on your own for change management, adoption, and enablement. We help organizations very regularly as change agents. We have specific offerings from a change enablement perspective. It's not a case of teaching you how to do things you already know, but it's actually providing clear guidance on what we see from customers because we see all the time. We know that whenever there are humans involved in situations, there are things that nobody is going to be 100% happy all of the time. And we help you to go on that journey and understand what your key business drivers are and how we can support you to move that a little bit more seamlessly and supported. We can also help you build a business case. This is something we offer as a core service. Again, because we've seen what organizations need to get this over the line, we'll tailor this for organizations we work with. We'd like to think that every single organization would use a business case template. We know that's not the case. You'll have your own ways of working, but we'll help you to do it. We have methodologies around ROI and TCO calculators, and that's not just talking about licensing, right? So there's another common misconception when you talk to certain software providers that ROI and TCO are only about licensing. What we look at is the efficiency gains across your organization. How can your mean time to resolve be improved? How can your impact from an actual person doing that day job be improved? So we look at everything across your business. We're then able to align with business goals in terms of those response times, collaboration, development with operations, and expand in service management. So that is a service we offer. We can support you. We can have an initial discussion on what you might need in that space. The other thing, as I said, is end user adoption. So we're committed to actually ensuring you get the highest return. And that one of the main things when you purchase any platform, when you purchase and change your way of working, if people aren't using it, you have absolutely zero ROI. So we help you to actually look at gradual approaches. And that one of the things we offer is end user training. We offer agent training. We offer admin training as well. There are multiple packages that we can provide as part of our transformation offerings. This is the case study I was talking about there before, and this was the exact example of using ServiceNow for 6 years, looking at where they wanted to unite dev and ops on a single platform. And they saw 40% year-on-year reduction in TCO, and that delivery time was actually improved by 70%. So it's a relatively large financial services leader, and they are now, I think they're in about 8 departments with Jira Service Management now. And the initial battle they had was just convincing people to look at Jira Service Management instead of ServiceNow. And since they did, they've just absolutely ran with it. They're seeing huge benefits. They've expanded their integrations with Confluence Cloud and Jira, and ultimately their organization has changed for the better by moving away from ServiceNow. I'm going to stop there for some Q&A. I have talked a lot. I do that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and open the chat for any questions. Hi again, everyone. So we have had one question in the Q&A, and that is, how would you rate the integration from ServiceNow with Microsoft? So I had quite a lot of experience with ServiceNow previously, though not for the last couple of years. I believe the integration between ServiceNow and Microsoft is pretty strong in terms of connectivity into Teams and things. I'm going to take that in a slightly different direction though. So one of the things we're actually working on with a customer at the moment is integration with Microsoft Defender and Microsoft Sentinel for JSM. JSM also does integrate very well with the Microsoft suite, um, and also with Slack as a native integration. So I couldn't give you a massively informed opinion on the ServiceNow Microsoft integration. I know customers do find it good. Um, I'm never going to turn around and say that ServiceNow is a bad platform. We know it does have its place. Um, but ultimately, we are seeing very easy connectivity beyond the standard Microsoft platform with JSM now. So I would say that they are comparable in terms of what they can do. And from what I've seen, JSM can go a little bit further in terms of native connection between JSM operations and Microsoft Sentinel and Microsoft Defender. I'm just going to pause and see if there are any more questions coming in. I think one of the other quite common questions we ask is around the cost profile when it comes to transitioning from ServiceNow to JSM. We do see some customers, because ServiceNow is a very mature platform within organizations who've been on it for a number of years. They feel more comfortable kind of dual running for a little while. And as I mentioned earlier on in the webinar, that dual running period is something that we definitely can support. What some customers do find though is they end up with a cost for the ServiceNow license, cost for the JSM license, and then cost for services. Now we work very closely with Atlassian, and we also offer some incentives to help offset some of that cost. It is something that Atlassian are aware of, and they're looking at that from an approach perspective going forward. But elephant in the room, it is something that customers do find a little bit difficult sometimes, but the long-term total cost of ownership and the ROI that comes with transitioning to JSM does by far outweigh that initial cost. I can see another question came in from Ingrid. So, how difficult is it to set up all the assets that you need, which are out of the box in ServiceNow? When you work with a solution partner, um, it is something that we specialize in. So we have built a an end-to-end asset management solution because we understand that the native functionality that comes out of the box with what you pay for ServiceNow, it is there and a little bit more ready. What we've actually done within Valiantys is created a best practice approach to asset management that includes a discovery capability with our partner, Landsweeper. Is it difficult? Yes, but if you work with the right partner, it is a much more straightforward. So what we've concentrated on is a gap analysis between what ServiceNow does and what JSM does, and we've got that fully charted. I'm happy to have a call with yourself, Ingrid, if it is something you'd want to do to talk you through what that methodology is and how we approach it. But ultimately, we've done this, a number of times now, and that initial view, if you look at JSM assets and open up a blank schema, it is blank. It's completely empty. And this is one of the kind of difficult balances that I struggle with sometimes in terms of rhetoric is JSM is so powerful because it can do anything. Now, what we specialize in is this is what JSM should do. This is what you should do within JSM. And that's how we help customers transition from ServiceNow to JSM. One organization we're working with at the moment, we're looking at the not just a cut off of ServiceNow assets, but giving them a little bit more time to get used to the configuration of JSM. And what I will say, compared to ServiceNow, the maintenance of assets in JSM is so much easier. You don't need a specialized kind of programming approach to do anything fancy within JSM assets. It is very much drag and drop, click and flow workflows. And the way we've approached our end-to-end asset management solution is looking at it from a few different lenses. So if you're a product-led organization, we have a schema construct that allows you to build in your product-led organization structure. If you're a services-led structure, we can do that as well. If you then have rules and business guidelines and processes that then need to sit over the top of the different schemas, we've also constructed that. So the way we work, it's not to try and replicate what customers have in ServiceNow today, but it's to make sure that the pain of moving from ServiceNow into JSM is absolutely mitigated. There are changes to ways of working. There are differences in terms of what JSM does from an assets perspective. But ultimately, what we've seen with customers who have had very complex asset estates in CMDB is they have not suffered a loss of productivity in JSM. They have found that JSM can do what they need to do in ServiceNow. ServiceNow is going to do things that you maybe don't actually need. But in terms of the configuration, it's not the most complex thing in the world to maintain. It's just choosing the right partner to get you set up for success when you do look at assets. So we've got about 4 minutes left. I'm going to pause once again for any more questions. So with the absence of more questions, what I will just say is in the chat, there's a link to my LinkedIn profile. My style is not heavy sell. I'm not going to bombard you with messages. But if you would like to have a conversation, please do reach out to me. My email address is also in there as well. Even if you are not wanting to start a full-blown engagement of transitioning from ServiceNow to Valiantys, but want to have a little bit more to JSM, sorry, but want to have a little bit more of a discussion, please feel free to contact me, and I'm more than happy to have conversations with people about what we're seeing is good practice when moving from ServiceNow to JSM. We do specialize in transitions from other tooling as well. So we have repeatable runbooks for ServiceNow, for Zendesk, for Cherwell, for Freshdesk, for all sorts of different things. We are experts in this migration process, helping to minimize the pain and supporting you from an organizational change management perspective. What scale or complexity typically requires companies to stay on ServiceNow instead of moving to Jira? Interesting question. I'm not sure who that was. It is an anonymous attendee. That is a very good question. What we see, it's not a complexity of organization problem. It's more a readiness to move from a top level executive sponsor perspective. So we had an instance with a customer earlier this year, and they were ready to make the migration. What stopped them was a change of CIO. So we find that CIOs and technologists prefer certain platforms. So the CIO that we had been working with and would built out all of their use cases. So he realized that the complexity could be handled in JSM, and he was fully convinced. He left the business. And the new CIO came in and had a very good relationship with ServiceNow and seen some really powerful things. So it wasn't a problem of scale of organization. There are no organizations I've come across that have turned around and said, well, actually, we can't help you because you are too complex. What it will take is a little bit more time from a complex organization perspective, a little bit more customization. But ultimately, it's not, as I say, it's not a complexity or scale question. It's a palatability and knowing that your organization is going to go through some pain. You're going to get users who are very used to ServiceNow, and the organizational change management piece is the most painful part. The data migration phase, that is something we've got down pretty nicely now. The CMDB construct, again, we've done that really well. They were the two really complex parts that we saw before. In terms of getting things set up, integrated, and connected, you can do everything that you need to do in ServiceNow within JSM. It's just going to take a little bit more time to get your stakeholders on board. So, as I say, long answer to a short question. It's not an organizational size of complexity. It's more of a mindset thing, and that is a difficult one to counter. It really is. It can be a real showstopper. We're not in the business of obviously forcing people and looking to change minds when they do have a preference. We're just here to support whenever the organization is ready to move forward. We do offer support
in terms of creating business cases and proving value. We do proof of concepts. We basically do a phased approach because we know that some of the most successful organizations who moved to JSM started with JSM in one part of their organization and then gradually moved up the JSM footprint from something like HR, facilities, payroll, proved the value, and then brought in IT. It doesn't need to be IT first to be successful. And we do see very good success stories where customers start with another department just because the complexity of IT is something that is a bit too difficult to counter for them at that stage. And then we'll prove the value and we'll help them move forward. Okay, I'm really sorry to have to end the webinar there, but we are at time. Like I've said, my LinkedIn and email are in the chat. Please do reach out if you want to have a conversation around anything that we've discussed so far on the webinar, or any other topics on ServiceNow and JSM, or just IT service management or enterprise service management in general. I'm a service management nerd. I like nothing better than talking about service management. So please do reach out for a conversation at any stage. Thanks again for attending, and I hope to hear from some of you soon.